Welcome back. Today's a little bit different. I'm gonna be throwing a spring garden party today, and I did a big harvest. Yesterday I harvested a bunch of spring vegetables, fruits, flowers, herbs, and I'm making a bunch of light bites to accompany our party. And yesterday I did some prep work, but we're first gonna start off with the crepe cake. And I harvested a bunch of calamansis, and then I juiced them and zested them. So this is gonna be like a very light, airy cake that will have whipped cream in it. But I'm super excited. Today's gonna be a little bit different because we're actually throwing the party today. So there might be some bumps in the road, and some of these things I'm making for the first time. So we'll just have to roll with the punches. And I've got my first coffee of the day here. Very much needed. I've got sourdough in the oven as well. I'm making 2 loaves of that, but I will run you through the menu as we do this. But the very first thing is, last night I made, I don't even know, I think it's like 20 to 30 crepes. And so between each of these crepes, I'm gonna be adding a layer of mascarpone calamansi whipped cream. So although this looks pretty flat, I think it'll stack up really nice and high. And then I also harvested some orange blossoms from my orange tree. All of the citrus is starting to bloom right now, and it's super, super fragrant, and I'm gonna use these to just like garnish the top of the cake. But first we're gonna start with our whipped cream. So I'm just gonna whip up a pint of heavy whipping cream. Always be careful moving this thing. Okay. Gonna sift some powdered sugar in with the mascarpone, just because you don't want any clumps in the frosting. And this is pretty much the only sweetness that will be in this cake, so we'll adjust to see if it is sweet enough first. Add in the mascarpone. The sourdough's ready. 1 second. Let's grab that. Looks pretty good. To cool, and we'll cut into that much later. You want to let sourdough cool until it's totally cool, because it's still continuing to cook. It's nice and hollow. And then I'm making another batch, so I'm gonna put my bread oven back in the oven to heat before popping in the next loaf. I, like most people, got into sourdough in 2020 and have been trying to find my perfect sourdough recipe. I don't like to have to fridge sourdough overnight or like for extended periods of time. I just want to be able to mix it the night before and then pop it into the oven in the morning. And so I've been experimenting with different recipes, primarily just with the hydration and how much water to add. I'm gonna let the Dutch oven preheat in the oven for about 25 minutes at 500 before we put in the next loaf. And then we're gonna get back to our mascarpone. So I'm gonna add in this calamansi juice and zest. So calamansi is a citrus that I grow in a pot in my backyard, but it's a really popular citrus in Filipino cuisine. It's usually served as like a garnish on the side, almost like limes with tacos, but calamansis with savory foods in Filipino cooking. So I'm gonna start out with about half of that, and then we'll add in a little bit more. We're just gonna mix this all together. It's extremely fragrant, kind of akin to like a kumquat, I'd say. I'm gonna give that a little taste. And see how much powdered sugar or calamansi we should add. It's definitely sweet. I think we could go with a little bit more calamansi just to make it really nice and tart. This dessert is gonna be like a kiss of spring. I'm also gonna add in just a little bit more powdered sugar just to balance out the tartness of the calamansi. I love like a sour sweet dessert. You can hear the bread popping in the background. All right, need a little bit more coffee. I've been kind of obsessed lately with a peanut butter latte or peanut butter Americano. What I do is I pull a shot of espresso and then I add in this like peanut butter powder. Sounds funny, but I then shake the espresso and peanut butter powder together, add ice, shake it again, and then either add water and then milk, some combination of like dairy, non-dairy, but it's really good, really, really good. And the one thing that I look forward to every single day, it's like probably the best part of my day. And I'm allowed to have 1 cup of coffee. And I used to drink 3+ cups of coffee a day, so 1 cup is what I get to have. Okay, when it comes to hosting, it's a little bit different than when we're cooking for the other episodes or even just on a regular weeknight, because you have to clean up as you go or else you'll run out of time at the end, and you don't want your house and kitchen to be an absolute disaster when people start to arrive. I'm going to lightly fold in the whipped cream to our calamansi mascarpone. To fold it, kind of like other whipped cream based frostings, you're gonna lift it up and gently push it back under. And you'll go in kind of like batches with that. You don't wanna lose the airiness of the whipped cream. If you've ever made like an angel food cake or anything like that, kind of similar. And I preach that because I learned from experience. If you go really crazy stirring it, you're just gonna have like a soupy mess on your hands. Okay, we've got our frosting. All right, we've got our cake stand, got our garnishes, and then all of our crepes that I made last night. I've never been a huge crepe person, primarily because I don't really like pancakes because I don't love the texture of pancakes, but I've never tried a crepe cake. So this is my first time making something like this. So I'm hoping it turns out. And I know some people are gonna be like, for a party, you're trying a recipe for the first time? Well, I'm around some people that love me very dearly, and if they don't like it, I think we'll be okay. So I'm gonna use the offset spatula, and we're just gonna see how much we need per layer. So I've got the crepe, put it down. Next one. I'm hoping that the weather cooperates with us. I set up a table outside for our party, but it was raining this morning, so I'm just kind of hoping and praying that the rain is over. But this past weekend, I spent a lot of time cleaning up the garden. So with spring, of course, it's amazing and all the flowers bloom and everything starts to grow really fast, but that means also that weeds start to grow very fast. So I spent most of the weekend pulling weeds. So not only is this party to celebrate spring, which is my personal favorite season actually. I don't know if I've mentioned that before, but I love spring and all of the vegetables and herbs and everything that it brings. But we're also celebrating a wine that I made. Well, I didn't make it this year, but Nick did, my husband, because as you know, I'm pregnant, so I didn't actually make this year's vintage, but this is my fifth year making this wine, and it's called My Fruit Trees, and it's inspired by my garden. And what we do is we take different grape varieties that mimic the flavors of different fruit that I'm growing, mainly stone fruit, and things like mulberries and citrus blossoms, and we try to emulate those sorts of tasting notes in the wine. And today, I'm inviting all my friends over to have a taste of it. And like I said, I haven't personally tasted it, so I'm hoping that they can all tell me what it tastes like and get their reaction and all of that. But it's a chilled red wine. It's always a chilled red wine, and it's perfect for spring, summer, early fall. And it usually pairs really well with things like pizza and like, I've also made like pork chops are really, really good with the wine, but also just really refreshing on a summer day because you can serve it chilled. So things with barbecue, like barbecue chicken, just a really easy drinking wine. So some of the things that I prepped last night already are a mixed spicy nut mix. Did I say mixed twice? A mixed nut spicy nut mix. I took rosemary, lime zest, cayenne pepper, and some maple syrup, and then baked that for a little bit until the nuts were toasted for just like a little nibble. And then also I marinated some olives with lime zest and rosemary, chili flakes, and garlic. So those are like just really light bites. And then the other thing that I made that's really good that I'm excited about is a white bean herb dip. And I thought that would go really well with the sourdough. We're also gonna make a whipped butter and then serve that with some fresh garden radishes too. Radishes and butter are like a little perfect combination. And then we're also gonna make an asparagus tart as well. Score it a little bit. And then I'm going to just put a couple of these orange blossoms as a garnish. I don't think people will want to eat them necessarily, so I'm not going to put them all over, but just to give a little bit of a hint of what they can expect kind of inside the cake. So I'm doing like a couple of trios of the orange blossom. These smell really, really good. One more trio over here. All right, so this is gonna go into the fridge until it's time to serve. Next up, we're gonna make some whipped butter, and I'm gonna add some green onions from the garden And then I have this vision of sticking these garden radishes that I sliced yesterday into the whipped butter as like a little bit of decoration, and then serving that with quartered radishes all around. And then I'm gonna plate it on this beautiful plate that I have. Oh, and I also have a couple of borage flowers that might be pretty as well. So these are kind of our garnishes here. And I'm gonna start by chopping up some green onions. And this is how I like to store my herbs. I actually like to store my herbs on my countertop in a mason jar with water. So in here, I've got cilantro and some dill as well as green onions. And I find that they do really well, or even better than in the fridge, personally, because with the water, it's kind of like you're growing the herbs on your countertop. And the outside temperature of your home, rather than the fridge, is kind of more similar to what the herbs are actually growing, or the environment the herbs are growing in. And I'd say that's the most obvious with basil. If you want to kill your basil or have your basil have the worst shelf life, put it in your fridge. What you want to do is, if you buy basil at the farmer's market or you grow it in your own garden, what you want to do is put it in a mason jar like that and not put it in your fridge. And then the variety of green onions that I grow in my garden are called walking onions. And so I've only ever planted them one time, and they're a perennial patch of green onions. And what they do is they grow up like a regular green onion, and then they sprout a bulb at the very top of the green onion. And then that gets heavy and it droops down and it plants the next crop of green onions. And then for this, I got some fancy butter. And there are probably some butter connoisseurs out there, but this one has flakes of sea salt in it, so we don't need to add extra salt. And this will be really nice with our freshly baked sourdough. I also just love a radish dipped in butter. Super, super good. And then we're just gonna get this whipped up. I'm also getting some content for the other platforms, but just so you know, I've filmed now, I've been a content creator for 3 years now, and I've filmed the majority of my content with just this little tripod stand. And, well, I don't even know if I would call this a tripod stand. I think it's for like when you charge your phone, so then it's like upright, or like when you FaceTime people. But honestly, it's how I do most of my filming. You don't need fancy equipment to get started. Okay. My vision here is kind of like a little bit of a tower of butter. I saw it on Pinterest. By the way, Pinterest is my favorite form of social media. Like, I get so much inspiration from it. If you know who came up with the idea to put radishes into butter, like we're gonna do, go ahead and tag them. I'm not taking credit for this idea. All right, and then my vision here, or what I saw on Pinterest, was to just insert little little radish slices into the butter, if it will go in. A little bit eclectic here. And these radishes grew super fast. I planted them, I think like less than a month ago, and they are ready to harvest. And one of the keys for radishes, or even like other root vegetables, to grow fast is you wanna make sure your soil is really loose. I've found that they struggle or they take a little bit longer when you have like a lot of sticks in your soil or rocks or things like that. So you wanna make sure the soil is nice and loose before you plant your carrots or your beets or radishes. But I love the color variation of these. There's some like purple ones. I saw some white radishes in there too in the mix that I planted. Those are not quite ready yet. Kind of fun. What does it look like? It's kind of different. The fun little appetizer idea. This party is a cocktail party, so we're not making a dinner per se, but just lots of little appetizers. And since it's a garden party, you know, like the sun will set before we're at like dinner time, so people can go on their way and have a proper dinner afterwards, or a light dinner. And I think the idea with this radish tree is that people can pull out a radish, get a little bit of butter, maybe a little slice of bread. I think that's in a good spot. And then I'm just going to put some of these quartered radishes kind of all around. Okay, and there you have it. Whipped green onion butter with sliced radishes. All right, we're gonna be making next an asparagus tart. This is inspired by a recent recipe I also made, which was an asparagus galette, but I saw these really long tarts on Pinterest. Again, I was getting a lot of inspo, and since I feel like we're getting like this kind of like whimsical fairy garden theme, I thought these would be really fun for our asparagus tart. And a little shortcut for hosting is to use puff pastry. And look, they're perfect. So I'm just gonna cut this. I don't even think we need to really roll it out at all. So we'll cut this down the middle. And then these tart pans are non-stick. And this is store-bought puff pastry. But if you want to tell people you made it yourself, I won't give away your secret. But we're just gonna place these in here because we want to have a nice little edge to it. So we're just gonna roll it out, be a little bit wider, so then we have a nice crust. Perfect. Well, that's convenient. I did not plan for that to be perfectly the length of my tart pan, but maybe that's what they designed them for, perhaps. Cool. Gonna set these aside while we prep our ricotta Parmesan filling. So some things when it comes to hosting is, the secret is to make things that are deceptively impressive. So something like this, we're using very simple ingredients, pre-made store-bought puff pastry, ricotta, a little bit of grated Parmesan, and then fresh asparagus. And I think just having playing with either the shape or having it be fresh produce or little things to make it look impressive. The whipped butter, that was really easy, but it looks impressive. Something I want to learn how to do is make my own cheeses. That'd be fun. Maybe that'll be a future episode. Because it'd be fun to make your own herb whipped cheeses. And we're gonna do a lot of Parmesan. To this, I'm gonna add some garden fresh herbs. So we've got some parsley, and then I've got some dill in here somewhere, right here. And then add some red pepper flakes. Salt and pepper. And some lemon zest. We're going for some really bright flavors with today's menu. Just embrace that spring vibe. And it's also what's in season, so like we're getting at the tail end of citrus. We've got like super bright greens, herbs, and just gonna start mixing this together. I'm gonna add in a little bit of olive oil just to try and get this to mix a little bit easier. I think that helped quite a bit. Yeah. I'm gonna evenly distribute some of this ricotta mixture between the two tarts. We've got the crown jewel of spring, which are asparagus. I've got a mix here of store-bought and homegrown asparagus. You can probably tell which ones are homegrown because they're a little bit more wonky, larger than the store-bought, which are pretty uniform. So what we're gonna do is, I'm not gonna just lay them down on here. We're gonna actually cut off the end, save that for compost, but I'm also gonna slice them lengthwise. And then I'm also going to trim them to about the width of the tart, and then we'll lay them down like this. I think it'll be really nice and pretty little vertical asparagus. Asparagus takes a few years to grow actually, so you plant it and it pops up the first year, but you're not supposed to harvest it. You're supposed to let it grow its root system below the soil until its third harvest or the third season. And even in that third season, you're not really supposed to harvest all of them. And so I planted my asparagus in the fall of 2020. So my first sprouting was in the beginning of 2021. And now we're in the fourth season of asparagus. So I'm able to harvest them as much as I want now. But it was definitely a waiting game, and they're only in season for such a short period of time, so you really want to make the most of them. And asparagus flowers are super pretty, so the asparagus will grow up, and then out of all these little sort of like notches or leaves on the side, they grow these really pretty fern-like leaves, and then they have little red kind of holly berry looking things that come out of the ferns as well, and it's really pretty. And so asparagus stays dormant in the soil most of the year, and then it sprouts up in spring. And then get this all laid out. Make sure I get enough in each one. For this next one, it's gonna be another deceptively impressive dish. We're gonna be making like a checkerboard feta and cucumber sort of bite plate. I'm gonna drizzle it with a little bit of this chili oil. We'll garnish it with some cilantro, and then I'll place out some toothpicks so people can take like a cucumber and a piece of feta, have it with some bread as well. So I'm gonna set my platter to the side. Look how cute this is, like a floral or like a little flower. But we're just gonna slice this cucumber into rounds. Go like that thick. This is another idea that I saw on Pinterest, and I saw other people doing like blackberries with feta or watermelon cubes with feta. Look really good. And so I was like, what could I do that's a little bit different and uses a little something from the garden, which are the herbs that I'm gonna be using. And then just to set myself up here so then I can figure out how big to make the feta, probably gonna set out the cucumbers. So then it's like a little bit of a checkerboard. And that is the perfect amount of cucumber. Okay, I don't know if it's the perfect checkerboard, but we'll see. Okay, so now I know kind of how big to make my feta. I'm gonna do them into kind of these little square triangles. Not square triangles, rectangles. Okay. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna take off little bits of the cilantro and put them kind of on the feta, just to make them look pretty. And it'll add a nice little bit of flavor as well. And cilantro is one of those things that I think a lot of people think is a summer herb, but it actually is here in California, a winter and spring herb because it is very sensitive to heat. And so you can see here that the leaves are already getting kind of like a little bit feathery and less, compact. And that's because it's starting to bolt. And when it bolts, it produces a flower, and then the flower produces a seed called coriander. And yeah, it likes colder, more mild weather. And in the summer, it's kind of almost impossible to grow here in Southern California. I'm gonna plate out some toothpicks in here. It's actually like a matchstick holder, but I like to use it for toothpicks just to make it a little bit more fancy for people. Perfect. And there is our cucumber feta chili checkerboard. All right, since it's spring, we're gonna make some spring rolls. Also, whenever you're having a party, it's good to recognize other people's dietary restrictions. And My brother-in-law is a non-dairy pescatarian, so I want to make sure that he has an option for a light bite tonight. And so I'm going to be making these vegan or plant-based spring rolls. And what I've got here, I've got some salad greens here that includes some pea shoots as well. And then cilantro, nasturtium flowers from the garden, bell pepper, avocado, and tofu. So just dipping the spring roll wrapper in some warm water and then begin to assemble. And since I want the nasturtium to kind of be this focal point of the spring roll, I'm gonna put these down first. These will be really nice and pretty. And then I'm gonna put a block of tofu, some bell pepper, avocado, and then grab a couple of pieces of salad greens and try and get a pea shoot or two as well. And then also some cilantro. And there you have it. Little spring roll. And I like how the nasturtium flower peeks out. So we're just gonna repeat that process a few more times. So these are a few of the other things that I prepped last night for the party, just really easy to throw together. Some spiced nuts, and this has lime zest, cayenne pepper, some rosemary, maple syrup, and olive oil. And then I just toasted them with that mixture just to make them a little bit special. So I'm gonna put these into nice bowls. And then just to make it a little bit more special, I'm just gonna put some like rosemary sprigs kind of like nestled in there just to make it look a little bit more, a little bit festive. So that's one of our light bites. And then I also marinated some olives in chili flakes, garlic, lemon zest, and rosemary. So I put those things into a saucepan and let the flavors meld over heat, and then added in the olives and let this kind of chill out overnight in the fridge together. And then this oil will come to room temperature. It'll look a little bit more appetizing just because the oil's congealed a little bit. And then lastly, I made an herb white bean dip. So I took cannellini beans, some olive oil, lemon zest, lemon juice, garlic, oregano, and parsley to make this plant-based dip. That will be really good with the bread as well. And we'll finish this off with a little bit of olive oil as well, and some flaky sea salt. So I'm just gonna put a little drizzle of olive oil on top. It always makes it look a little bit nicer. And then some flaky sea salt too. Pretty easy, but a little bit impressive as well.